Are you curious about the digital nomad lifestyle? Maybe you're already a digital nomad, but you're not sure you're making the most of your situation. Or maybe you just want to hear a totally inappropriate story about some close encounters I had with a kangaroo that I chose to share with a few hundred people. In this video, I'm thrilled to share a keynote presentation I gave at Bansko Nomad Fest called Top Financial Hacks for Digital Nomad Superstars. Bansko Nomad Fest is an annual conference that brings together hundreds of digital nomads from around the world for a week of workshops, keynote presentations, skill sharing, excursions, and parties. A lot of parties. Bansko, in case you're wondering, is where that is nestled in the mountains of Bulgaria. It's a thriving ski town in winter and a playground for hiking, biking, and other mountainous adventures in summer. Summer, however, is also the off-season, which makes it perfect for a few hundred digital nomads to descend upon the place. But year-round, Bansko, Bulgaria is a big digital nomad hub, thanks largely to COWORKING Bansko. They are host to a year-round thriving community of digital nomads and remote workers. Membership to COWORKING Bansko gives you access to multiple office spaces, an active social calendar, and more. While there are other co-working spaces in Bansko now, I believe it was COWORKING Bansko that put this tiny town on the map as a destination for digital nomads to come and live, work, and play. They also have some interesting new initiatives for co-living and co-working that I'm interested to see develop out. But I'm getting off track. Bansko captured a piece of my heart last summer when I attended Nomad Fest to speak, and I do plan to return again this summer for Nomad Fest, and I hope to stay for a while. It's super easy to plan a trip to Bansko. There are websites to help you find apartments for a couple of €100 a month, And there are active Facebook groups to get all your questions answered and connect with other digital nomads. I will include links in the description to help you plan your own trip to Bansko. Hey, maybe I'll even see you there. This keynote presentation I gave is in 3 sections. I speak about the big picture of the digital nomad lifestyle, and I outline the 3 pillars of financially sustainable travel. Hint, this has nothing to do with budget travel, although having a budget is certainly part of it. You'll see some of the places I stayed in while I was busy saving $100,000 on accommodation. Yes, you heard that right. And you'll meet a kangaroo that, well, you just have to watch the presentation. Then I get into some nitty-gritty financial stuff like currency conversion and arbitrage, tracking and splitting expenses, internet security, and taxes and residency. I also delve into the stuff that nobody likes to talk about, but that can make or break your experience of this lifestyle. Things like retirement planning, exit strategies, and of course, insurance. So without further ado, please enjoy my keynote presentation at Bansko Nomad Fest. Top financial hacks for digital nomad superstars. I'm going to try to condense 25 years of experience, 16 of which was spent as a digital nomad, the rest of which was spent as a financial planner, into 25 minutes. So, I have my work cut out for me, but what I can tell everybody here is that you will come away with some actionable tips and advice that you can walk away with and start using right away, regardless of where you are in your digital nomad journey. So today we're going to start with the big picture and what financially sustainable travel is. We will get into the nitty-gritty with some solid tips. And then I'm going to talk about the stuff that nobody likes to talk about, because that's how I roll. Now, why am I the person here to speak to you about this? In 2006, I sold everything that I owned in Toronto, Canada, and that included a busy financial planning practice, so I could embrace my dreams of traveling the world long-term and in a culturally immersive way. 2006 is also what I like to refer to as the pioneer days, prehistoric times, in that words like digital nomad, location independent, and remote work did not even exist. So there was really no infrastructure or community for people like me. So I did exactly what it is that I wanted to do at that time, which was to travel the world, live around the world in an extremely local and immersive way. And it was amazing. As the years went on, my travel blog, which is theprofessionalhobo.com, it was just a glorified online journal. That's all travel blogs were at that time as well. However, as the years went on and as an industry developed and travel blogs actually became a thing that you could make money with, I became recognized as one of the original travel bloggers and original digital nomads. And now today, I help people design their lifestyles and arrange their affairs so they can travel long-term while working remotely. Now, something interesting happened in the first few years of my full-time travel career. Ever the financial planner, I tracked all of my expenses, and I came across this shocking realization. And this realization was that the cost to travel full-time was significantly less than I ever spent to live in one place. And I was so amazed by this because, of course, travel to me meant vacation. You know, that was all my lexicon for travel was. I didn't realize travel as a lifestyle was a completely different way of living and had a completely different set of expenses and expenditures. So for my first 10 years on the road, I published my annual expenses and my income to prove that full-time travel can be financially sustainable. And I quite inadvertently coined this term, financially sustainable travel. What this term means is it's based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is earning money remotely. Now, I'm not really going to talk about this with you guys today because we're all doing this in different ways, whether you are a freelancer or an entrepreneur or an employee, we're all earning money remotely right now. The second pillar of financially sustainable travel is making creative, conscious choices with how you spend your money. And we will talk about this. And the third pillar is balancing the money in with the money out so you can sustain this lifestyle for as long as you want. And this looks very different for everybody. If you're earning a lot of money, you will make different spending choices than if you're earning less money and starting off in your journey. But what I learned along the way is that I did not need to sacrifice on style or quality of life. So, some creative, conscious ways to spend our money. What is our biggest expense on the road? Accommodation, absolutely. Whether we're traveling or not, accommodation is definitely our biggest expense. Now, in my first 10 years on the road, I saved over $100,000 US by getting my accommodation for free. I literally wrote the book on it. There's 5 different ways to get free accommodation: volunteering, house sitting, home exchanges, if you have a home to exchange, living on boats, and hospitality exchanges. Not all of these free accommodation methods are super well suited to the digital nomad lifestyle. Some are absolutely excellent. But one of the common misconceptions of free accommodation is that I'm staying in places like this. When in fact, actually, I stay in places like this. This was a Swiss Alpine cottage I took care of for 3 months in the summer. This is a house in Panama I took care of. That's one house, 3 months in Panama, full-time gardener, full-time housekeeper. All I really had to do was keep the dog and the cat company. That was fun. This is a retreat center in New Zealand that I volunteered at. I did all kinds of interesting things. I helped them design marketing plans, and I worked in the kitchen. They had a really interesting international community there. The food was amazing, and it was all included with my volunteer thing. I went back multiple times, as did many of the volunteers there. It's just a really special place. This is a resort in the Caribbean in the off-season that I was taking care of. Really, all I had to do was be there. This is in Cuenca, Ecuador, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. All I had to do was take care of Dulce the cat. I lived on boats for 3 months in the Caribbean, not a night on land, 5 boats spanning 3 countries. This is in the British Virgin Islands. This is in Australia. I actually spent a fair bit, this is early on in my digital nomad career. I was volunteering at this place in Australia, beautiful 300-hectare property. I did all these like weird and wild things, like I learned how to chop firewood. That was fun. This is me and Charlie the llama. I was actually leading ego treks on llamas. Who does that? This place was also an animal sanctuary, so they would take animals that had been inappropriately raised by humans and they would rehabilitate them to the wild. So I actually had a kangaroo fall in love with me and follow me everywhere I went for 6 months. I kid you not, this is Bracken. Bracken was rehabilitated to the wild, but he would occasionally come down from the hills and say hello. And as soon as he laid eyes on me, he decided he had eyes for no one else. And he literally camped out on my doorstep. This is from my living room window. Like whenever he would see action going on in the mornings, he'd be like, "Oh, come out and play, come out and play." Now, being an adolescent boy kangaroo, the unfortunate and slightly creepy thing was that he kind of like literally loved me, which was bizarre. I learned to kind of like dodge the line of fire when such things would happen. The owner of the property, she was not a very nice woman, and she was ranting and raving about something one day, and Bracken was sitting there next to me, as he always is. And she was standing, 10 feet away, and he lost control of himself, and he had good reach, so he hit her in like the forehead and all in the hair. And kudos to her, she did not skip a beat. She kept ranting and raving, where she just kind of got rid of the evidence. And on that day, I learned that karma exists. All of this to say that my free accommodation opportunities were about a lot more than free accommodation. I experienced things, I met people, and I did things that I would never have had a chance to do if I was just traveling the world in a conventional way. So sometimes when we save money, we're saving a lot more than money, and we're having some really amazing experiences. And I encourage everybody to think about what sort of creative conscious choices you can make when you're choosing your destinations and your forms of combination, and also how you want to live your lives. Now, the next most expensive part of our lifestyles is transportation. Again, with a name like the Professional Hobo, most people think I travel like this, when usually I travel more like this. All of my long-haul flights are in business class, and they're for less than the price of an economy ticket. And I do this through the strategic use of frequent flyer miles. Now, the best way to accumulate frequent flyer miles in this way is through credit cards. And I'm going to admit here that this is not available to everybody in the world. It depends on your citizenship and your residency. The most opportunities will exist for Americans, next up for Canadians, next up Europeans and Australians. But if you do have residency in one of these places and the ability to apply for cards, it's very simple. Simply apply for the cards, you get the sign-up bonuses. You spend money that you would normally spend on all of your daily expenses on these cards, and that helps you accumulate miles. You pay off the cards every single month, so you do not pay any interest. I was talking to someone about this last week, and they said, well, credit cards, frequent flyer miles, that's all very expensive. And I said, well, actually, it's not. Because, as an example, my flight here from Canada was 53 Canadian dollars in taxes. And I had a business class experience with the full lie flat bed and the lounges and the meals and the stuff and the things. And this was because of a credit card I had applied for. I actually got the first year for free, but even if I had paid the $150 annual fee and the $50 in taxes, that was a $200 flight overseas in business class. That equivalent flight in economy would have been over $600. So in fact, I can save money and still travel like this. This is something that we are all practicing right now, currency arbitrage, also known as geo arbitrage. We are earning money in a strong currency, and we are going to countries where that money will go further. It is an excellent strategy. I just encourage you to consider the impact on the places that you're visiting, making sure that you are creating a positive impact, because there is a fine line between practicing currency arbitrage and contributing to the societies and economies that you're visiting, and exploitation. The last way that I'll speak about today, to make travel sustainable, is to go slowly. And this is not only a financial decision, this is a lifestyle decision. We all choose how quickly or slowly we want to go. I happen to know that there are people in this room who like to move every few days or a few weeks. That's cool. I did that for a while. It also almost killed me. But then I just took 6 months in a comatose state in New Zealand to recover, and then, I moved to a new pace of travel. We can decide how we want to travel. But I will say that the more planes, trains, automobiles, taxis, buses, tuk-tuks, scooters, whatever that you are getting on, the more money you are going to spend. And also, the longer you stay somewhere, the less you'll spend on accommodation. I got an apartment here for 200 euros for a month, and it would have cost me more to actually get a hotel for a week. So generally speaking, when you stay somewhere for longer, you're going to spend less money on accommodation. You usually also have things like kitchen facilities, so you can do, you can not eat all of your meals out, and that will help you save some money as well. So not only from a financial point of view, but also from a lifestyle point of view, going slow can help you sustain this lifestyle as long as you want. Now, I promised you some nitty-gritty, so let's get into it. We are all paying currency conversion fees and bank charges. No matter how you slice it, we're going to pay these fees. But what we can do is we can minimize these fees. So currency conversion fees, here's a hot tip. Great way to reduce your currency conversion fees and bank charges. Avoid PayPal like the plague. I mean, it's really convenient. It's very well known. It's easy to get paid and to pay people through PayPal. However, their fees are nebulous and high and ever changing, and some of their fees are invisible. For example, if I get paid in US dollars and I convert that money to my Canadian account, they tack on an additional 5% invisibly, and they just pocket that difference. Credit cards will also do this. Hot tip. Get a credit card with no foreign transaction fees, also expressed as no FX fees. What that means is every time you use that credit card and you charge something in a foreign currency to that card, they will calculate the exchange rate at the bank rate. If it does not a no FX fees card, then what the credit card is going to do is they're going to tack on an additional 3% in the form of foreign transaction fees. And again, they're going to pocket that difference. And 3% on every expense you have adds up. So generally speaking, also currency conversion counters, those cash places, yeah, when they say there's no commissions, it's not no commissions. Trust me, they're making money on the spread. So generally speaking, if you want cash in a local country, I advise that you go to the ATM and you pull the money out. You're going to get the best rate and then spend all that cash in the country before you go. I actually make it a little game. I enjoy trying to spend every last little bit of currency, usually at the airport on my way out. However, using the ATM is not always foolproof either. Strangely, I don't know why I have this obsession with ATMs. I could do an entire session on how to use ATMs. So I don't know. Come ask me later if you want some hot tips. But this picture here is this is a money changer that I found in Kuta in Bali. And anyone who's been to Kuta knows that it's a hellhole. If you don't think it's a hellhole, we can't be friends. But this was fateful morning. I had a lot of money that I had to exchange, and I experienced every single currency exchange scam that was possible. It was to the point where it was humorous. Like if I didn't know some of these scams, like there was one guy in particular, like if he hadn't actually have pocketed half of my money through sleight of hand, I would have let him have it. Like he deserved it, really. I literally applauded him and said, give me my money back. And the only reason on this particular morning I was actually trying to change currency is because in my research, I had learned that at this time in Bali, the ATMs had been notoriously rigged with skimmers, or a lot of them had been. So, hot tip. If you're using the ATM, before you stick your card in the slot, it sounds suggestive, it's not. Before you stick your card in the slot, look at the slot. Look for signs of tampering. Literally grab the device and try to pull on it and see if you can pull it off. Because a skimmer will be something that is actually just put on top of the card slot. And as you put your card into the machine, this skimmer is going to swipe your information. Now, here's the problem. If your credit card is compromised, then, fraudulent purchases are made on the card. That's okay. Well, it's not okay. But it's okay ultimately because you just call the credit card company and you say, my card's been compromised, and they'll deal with it. But if your debit card is compromised and your bank account is drained, there's no recourse. So you need to be very careful when using ATMs. Specifically, that's the hottest tip I can give you. I can give you lots of tips, but the hottest tip I can give you is to watch for skimmers. If we are traveling with partners, it is going to be messy, right? Someone pays for lunch the next day, someone pays for dinner the next day, another person will pay for the airfare, someone else is paying for the accommodation, and at the end of the day, after you've done all of this, possibly through multiple currencies, who owes who? Holla to Matt Bowles. He and I traveled around the U.S. by train last summer, and he introduced me to an app called Splitwise. And this is an app. It's super easy. It's free. You can create a trip, right? You each become partners in the trip, and whenever anyone spends money, you just input it into the app, and the app does all the work at the end of the day of trying to figure out who owes who money. There's another app that does the same thing. It's called Splitter. Very easy way to manage expenses. Now, as digital nomads, we are also doing a lot of things online, as in all the things online, including our banking. This now opens us up to challenges with internet security. So I'm going to ask a question here. I'm kind of scared for the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who here uses a VPN 100% of the time at the co-working space? Okay. Who here uses a VPN 100% of the time at your hotel? Oh God, guys. Who here uses a VPN 100% of the time at coffee shops? There's even fewer. Okay, there's a few more hands. Okay. All right, people. Here's the deal. Just because an internet connection has a password, it does not mean it's secure. Because anyone who has ever been to that co-working space, airport, hotel, or coffee shop also has that password. And it means they can access your information while you are on that network, 100% of the time. Now, you might tell me, but Nora, I don't have anything to hide. I don't believe you. We all have something to hide. We all have passwords. We all have banking information. And although there may always be some kind of recourse, it may just be a glorified inconvenience. Trust me, when you're traveling in between countries and doing the digital nomad thing, you do not want this inconvenience. Passwords are another example. I have over 200 passwords. I don't know any of them. Now, initially, that very concept was terrifying to me until I realized what was even more terrifying was the fact what I was doing before, which is I had like basically 3 words that I would memorize, and I would just add like exclamation marks and ones at the end of that to satisfy whatever requirement for symbols and that I needed in there. That is terrifying. So now what I do is I use a password manager. Dead easy. I remember one password. It's the master password. It even saves time because it automatically fills passwords on my devices. I can also store encrypted copies of my ID, my passports, my bank cards, my driver's licenses. When my purse was stolen in Peru and I lost everything except my laptop, I went back to my accommodation, got on my laptop, entered in my master password, and all of the information I needed to get my stuff back was in there. And within 2 hours, I had canceled all my cards and had new ones on the way. It's also really great as you can share that master password with someone back home. This is amazing because then if something happens to you, they can get into any of your accounts and obviously share it with someone you trust, but they can do all the things that they need to do. No one wants to talk about this. I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert here. If you die, a password manager is actually going to really help the executor of your estate get in there and do all the things they need to do. And if you were the executor of anybody's estate, you better hope that the person that you're executor for also has a password manager. Taxes and residency could also be an entire talk unto itself. I'm going to just leave it at this, and I'm going to say, think about it. Dean earlier this morning had some great information about structuring your residency and your business so you can save tax. We definitely want to try to minimize taxes, educate yourself and learn about the possibilities. If you're just starting a business, consider how and where you want to register that business. But also consider the possibility that your priorities and your lifestyle will change. So as a personal example, when I left Canada, I never became a resident of another country because I was moving very quickly. So for lack of knowing what else to do, I remained a Canadian resident and I continued to file my Canadian taxes along the way. Actually worked out pretty well. I always got money back every year. I'm not really sure how that happened, but it worked out well. And 12 years later, when I decided I did want to return to Canada and get a base there again, it was really easy for me. I was able to just walk right back in. I had the full health care and all the things. So consider your now, consider minimizing your taxes, but also consider how this might play into the greater scope of your life. Which leads me into the stuff that nobody wants to talk about, and I'm going to start with retirement. This lifestyle is a very present moment experience. Like when I sold everything I owned to travel the world, I was like, I'm retiring. I wasn't retiring. But I was retiring from that lifestyle, the conventional lifestyle, the rat race, the grind, whatever you want to call it. And I had done some good investing in my early years that I knew could take care of me in my golden years, shall we say. So I didn't have to earn as much money when I became a digital nomad. However, I encourage everybody here to consider the possibility, nay, the reality, that at some point you are going to be either unwilling or unable to work. As remote workers, I think we get a little complacent about this. We're like, but I work remotely. I mean, it's not like I'm doing manual labor. How hard can it be? Yeah, you know what? At some point, as we age, the very sad reality is we start to lose our mental capacities. We don't work as quickly, mentally and physically. It's going to happen. Oh, but I'm a travel writer. All I have to do is work on my computer. I've said this to myself, and then I thought, hold on, wait a minute, Nora. I'm not going to be able to keep up technologically in my 70s and 80s with someone in their 20s and 30s. It's just not possible. So it's important to prepare, to think about and prepare for your financial future because no one else is going to do it for you. And the earlier in your life you start saving and investing for your retirement, the less money you actually have to save because you will be able to take care of the beautiful thing that is compound growth. Consider your exit strategy. For those of you here who are in business for yourselves, consider, I know it seems weird to consider the end when you're just at the beginning, but that's the most important time to consider it. If you might want to sell your business, what decisions would you make now about your business in order to make it a saleable asset later on? Think about that now. If you're in partnership with anybody, have you considered, do you have partnership agreements? Have you had the discussions? What happens if one partner wants out? What happens if you want out? What happens if a partner becomes disabled? What happens if a partner dies? These are conversations you have to have that you don't want to have. These are things we need to be consider that we may not want to consider, but they will save us a whole load of heartache later on down the road. Now, insurance can be a way to hedge against some of these bets from partnership agreement points of view. Normally, when we think of insurance, of course, as digital nomads, we're thinking travel medical insurance, remote health insurance. Yes, 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 yes. You need it. Do not be that person who says, oh, if I get sick or injured, I'm just going to crowdfund and the universe will take care of me. I will unfriend you and block you. Do not make your irresponsibility my problem. If you cannot afford travel insurance, you cannot afford to travel. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But there are other forms of insurance you may want to consider as well. For example, if you have a family and you are the main breadwinner of your family, what happens if you die? How are your spouse and kids going to continue on while they're busy grieving your loss? Now, I've worked in insurance. I've had insurance. I've had to make claims insurance. I believe in insurance. I also believe it's possible to have too much insurance. So it's important to evaluate your needs and get only what you need. And I will also tell you that, unfortunately, when it comes time to make a claim, the insurance company's sole responsibility is to get out of paying. So it is also important to read your policy from cover to cover. It is soul-destroying work. However, it is going to help you immensely if and when it comes time to make that claim. I have so much more I want to say. However, what I've done is I've made you a present. If you go to theprofessionalhobo.com/Bansko, I have given you a resource that will go into all of the things that we've talked about today, and it gives you rabbit holes to dive down in terms of all of these things. And there's a few extra little resources in there just for you that will be applicable to everybody in this room. I want to leave you with this thought. In 2006, when I started traveling full-time, I felt like I was the only person in the world to do this. There was no community for people like me. 10 years later, digital nomads were a movement. Things were happening. Communities weren't being developed. Then the pandemic happened, and millions of companies were forced to go remote or become obsolete. And what that means is millions, if not billions, of people now work remotely. And a portion of these people are going to want to take these remote jobs on the road and travel. Some of you may be in this room right now. But all of us in this room right now are part of this wave, this tsunami of remote work and digital nomad lifestyles. So let us lead by example. Let's help people who are getting into this lifestyle. Let's make it easier for them. Let's also set the right examples. Please, can we stop at the pictures of the laptops on the beach? Nobody works on the beach. Sand gets everywhere. There's no power outlets. Come on, people. And let's enjoy the future of digital nomadism because it's going to be a ride. Thank you very much.
With